Hello, and welcome to ILTV's Insider. I'm your host, ILTV Editor-in-Chief Maayan Hoffman. Today, we're going to dive deep into the heated debate over Israeli sovereignty in Judea and Samaria. As the IDF raises the alarms of terror escalating in the settlements, we'll discuss the lasting impact of land concessions, the two-state solution, and whether Israel can truly apply sovereignty to the biblical heartland. To hold this discussion today, I have three experts with me in the studio. Nadia Matar, co-chair of the Sovereignty Movement. Welcome, Nadia.
Shalom. Thank you for having us.
Of course, Nadav Tamir, executive director of J Street Israel.
Thank you.
And as well, Maurice Hirsch, head of the Initiative for Palestinian Authority, Accountability, and the Reform in the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs, and former director of the Military Prosecution in Judea and Samaria. Welcome, Maurice.
Hi, Maya.
Thank you so much for being here. Let's just jump right into the questions. You know, we talk about sovereignty as it applies to Judea and Samaria, but my question is, haven't we actually lost sovereignty throughout the country? We can no longer live in the north or the south. Do you believe there's any connection between what we saw on October 7th and what we are seeing in our battle against Hezbollah in the north and the weakness and hesitation we have shown in the settlements? In other words, is this war being waged ultimately over sovereignty on the land, us or the Arabs? And I'm wondering, Nadia, if you can start with that.
The answer is definitely yes. And I represent here Judith Katzover, my co-chair, who already in 2011 said that we need to come up with a sovereignty plan, because up until then, the right wing always said no to the left, no to the two-state solution, which everybody understands is suicide, no to give Arafat weapons, no, no, no. What is our yes? What do we suggest? And that is when she rightfully said we have to come with something that should have been done the day that we won the Six-Day War, the application of Israeli sovereignty. And the war is about sovereignty, and we who believe that the land of Israel belongs to the people of Israel. We who believe that Israel is the nation-state of the Jewish people, and we need to have a Jewish overwhelming majority and a non-Jewish minority loyal to the state of Israel. What is the plan? And we have gotten to this war and this mess, if I can say so, because we believe we haven't applied sovereignty at the time in '67 when we returned to Judea, Samaria, and all those areas, and we left a vacuum. And by not applying sovereignty at the time, Israel basically said, I'm not sure it's mine. By not applying sovereignty, basically we gave way and we we enabled the lie of the invented Palestinian people to claim that it's theirs because we weren't sure it's ours. And because we didn't apply sovereignty, we enabled people to come up with disastrous plans, the Oslo agreements, which cost the life of 1,500 Jews then in the 90s, and which culminated in the October 7th massacre. And in order to return and to correct all the mistakes that over the past 30 years were done by caving in and capitulating to people who want our destruction, the answer is the application of Israeli sovereignty with 57 years of delay, yes, not only to destroy Hamas and Hezbollah, but to apply sovereignty, to be a sovereign nation, and to cancel the Oslo agreements, and to make it very clear, once and for all, Israel is here to stay.
And that I hear what you're saying, but the truth of the matter is that while we are talking, or you're talking about applying sovereignty over all this area, U.S. President Joe Biden believes in a two-state solution. The American administration, if Kamala Harris gets in, we're talking about a two-state solution. This is historic. And by the way, it's not just the United States. It's Europe. It's many different countries. And the question that I'm wondering, if Nadav, you can start with this, if it's okay. You know, last week, Spain, Ireland, a group of states, they got together. They said, we're going to take our words that we believe in a two-state solution, and we're going to turn them into action. And now they're thinking, how are they going to make a Palestinian state on much of the land that Nadia is talking about? Is the majority of the world's leadership naive and stupid, thinking that this Palestinian state can exist, or not?
No, I think that they're supporting the Zionist project better than some of the Israelis, because there's no way Israel could be the homeland of the Jewish people if we won't have a Palestinian state. If we don't end the occupation will end us. The Americans understand it as friends of Israel. Biden declared that he's a Zionist. I believe that he is a Zionist, but the entire international free world, with the exception, of course, of Iran, Hamas, and the Netanyahu government, understand that the two-state solution is the only way for Israel to remain what the Zionist project was supposed to be, and for the Palestinians to have dignity and a homeland for their own.
You agree?
Absolutely not. You don't have the two-state solution. You have the two-state delusion. It's the idea that the Arabs are willing to accept the existence of a Jewish country in any borders to the west of the Jordan River. They've never accepted that idea. They never will accept that idea. Hamas's charter says it explicitly. Hezbollah is fighting us for their desire to destroy the Jewish country. And the PLO, still has its plan of stages from the 1970s, which they are implementing day after day. Take any piece of land that we are given and use that as the basis to then continue on attacking the Jewish state. If we were allow them to have a state in any part of the area to the west of the Jordan River, we will find ourselves with the same missiles and rockets that we've seen from Gaza, coming out of Tulkarem, coming out of Shechem, endangering the entire area of Israel's heart.
And Maurice, the reality is that we have given up land for peace before, right? The Sinai and Yamit, Gush Katif in northern Samaria, and we can clearly see what those concessions have brought to us. So I guess the question is, what happened and why is land for peace still on the table if when we pulled out of Gush Katif in 2005, we left the Gaza Strip, we've dealt with 20 years of rockets?
It's exactly for that reason. We are giving away land to terrorists who seek our demise and destruction. They are not interested in peace. We just have to stop talking to ourselves and talking amongst ourselves and actually give the Arabs the respect that they deserve to listen to their words. Their words are very clear. They don't want peace. They want the destruction of Israel as soon as possible, and any opportunity they have, they will take to forward that plan. Unfortunately, the Western leaders, Joe Biden, the Europeans, are so inherently racist that they believe that these little meager Arabs don't really mean what they say when they say every day, day after day, we want to destroy the Jews.
But the reality is, and Nadia, I have to turn to you for this, is that we have actually, even the right wing has not been so willing to annex the Judea and Samaria. I mean, you're in charge of a sovereignty movement. Of course, that is what you want to do, is apply sovereignty over those areas. But there was a proposal on the table to annex at least the Jordan Valley in the deal of the century, and the settlers turned it down.
The deal of the century was, as Eliakim Ha'etzni of blessed memory said, a poison wrapped into in a candy. It wasn't really about sovereignty. It was about giving 30% sovereignty, but there was a second part to the plan, 70% a Palestinian state, including parts of the Negev. And thank God, even David Friedman, in his new book, admits that those who opposed the deals of the century, which I'm very proud that our movement opposed it together with many others, and because we read the small print, he himself admits in his book that in hindsight, we were right, because it would have given legitimacy to a Palestinian state later, and therefore there's no problem. If I may say one sentence about your previous question, are the Western leaders naive? They're not naive. They relate to what is going on here by us as if it's a conflict between two people who have a claim to the land, and let them just divide it, and that's it. But that's not what's going on here. What is going on here is much deeper, and that the Palestinian Authority writes all over their slogans on flags, etc. In Arabic, they say, on Saturdays we will kill the Jews, and on Sundays we will murder the Christians. The real war that is taking place here is the war of Islam, fanatical Islam, against the Western civilization. They want a Palestinian state to destroy Israel as a first course, and then go on to turn Europe into Eurabia, and then to America, Australia, etc.
So this is I want Nadav to react to that.
Well, first of all, what my colleagues here are saying is completely disconnected from reality.
They're not racist in America?
They're not racist in America. No, I think that America is a very Jewish-loving country. The majority of Americans love Jews, and so are majority of European governments, and I'm in touch with most of them. The problem is those assumptions that the world is all against us and the Arabs all want to kill us, while the Arabs accepted the two-state solution many years ago.
But they don't today by statistics.
They do. First of all, you have to distinguish between Palestinians and the Arabs. The Arabs accepted the Arab initiative, and it is on the table and being ratified every year, and it calls for a two-state solution around the 67 borders with land swaps.
And you're talking about Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates.
The Palestinians also accepted it. In '88 already the PLO said that we are trying to get our land on 22% of historic Palestine, not the 48 borders, the 67 borders. And we know from every survey that we see that whenever there is a political horizon for the Palestinians, they still support that vision. Whenever there is war, and whenever there is an Israeli government that is run by messianic settlers who want to create chaos with their friends in America, the evangelists who believe that chaos will bring Jesus Christ back, that is when the Palestinians become...
There's a lot of problems in America. Racism, now we've got fanatics.
Yeah.
But tell me something. I want to piggyback, and then I'm going to ask you. Because let's talk about this Palestinian state for a minute, okay? The Knesset actually recently unanimously voted that there cannot be a Palestinian state. So I think the question is, how can we...
Wasn't unanimously?
Well, except for the Arab parties, the majority.
No, there was a majority?
Most people.
All the Zionist parties.
All the Zionist.
No, that's not. Labor were not there. Yesh Atid were not there.
There were those that did not vote.
Gadi Eisenkot were not there.
Of those that voted, all but the Arab parties voted in favor. And my question for you is then this, like, I mean, even though a two-state solution might sound really nice and all these people agree, at this point, Israel has maybe made a decision that it doesn't feel that it's safe. So why still talk about it? Can we even have a Palestinian state if the Knesset already voted that we cannot?
I'll say two things. First of all, I have no doubt, just like the same Israelis who supported Menachem Begin, who was against any compromise, eventually supported him in having the peace with Jordan and withdrawing from the Sinai, and even dismantling settlements in Sinai. The same Israelis who supported Sharon when he said Netzarim and Tel Aviv are the same, supported him when he decided to move out of. And I believe that when the Biden doctrine will be implemented, which means that there is an alliance of Arab countries with Israel, with the Palestinian state, against Iran and its proxies, including Hamas and Hezbollah, most Israelis will support a Palestinian state. But I will say more than that. It is not an Israeli decision. The Palestinians deserve to have a state, just like the UN didn't ask the Palestinians if Israel could be a state in 48.
Yeah,
they do exist.
They didn't exist. Who are you going to ask?
Okay, so...
I mean, Husseini was with Hitler in the bunker. Who are you going to ask?
Anyone who still believes in the Palestinian state basically is going to bring upon Israel October 7 times 1,000.
Exactly the opposite.
I admire
Hamas
former
is against
MK
the
of
two-state
Labour Party, MK Goldschmidt, who we just promoted his video, who said it clearly. I have to say sorry for being in favor of the Oslo agreements. The Arabs don't want peace, and what you're saying is completely incorrect. You're misleading the public, because had the Arabs agreed to what you just said before, they would have taken a Palestinian state with two hands when Olmert gave it to them, when...
why don't you ask Olmert? Why don't you ask Barak?
Why didn't
they will tell you exactly the opposite.
Okay.
Olmert, until today, thinks that if he would not be on trial, he would achieve a two-state solution.
So, Maurice, I want Maurice to react, because the truth is, Maurice, with the experience that you have internationally as well, there are two questions here. One, I think you need to react to what Nadav said and what Nadia is saying. But also, I mean, there is a question about whether or not the train already left the station. You mentioned 1967. We're talking about 57 years or 50, whatever, I'm bad at math, but 50 some odd years since we won over Judea and Samaria, but we waited and we did not annex it. At some point, don't you kind of miss the opportunity? React to them and give me an answer to that.
So firstly, just as a reaction, you have to understand the Arab Peace Initiative from 2002 that Nadav presented here as this panacea of peace. One of the non-negotiable terms of that agreement and that plan is to destroy Israel demographically and democratically. It requires, as the Arabs have said over and over and over and over again, the return of millions of Arabs from all of the different countries of the world. Read the plan, Nadav.
That is false.
The plan says
just
exactly,
an agreed solution to the refugees.
You just
agreed solution, meaning a veto for Israel. That if Israel doesn't accept, there will not be return of refugees to Israel. And this is what the Arab world believes until today. The Saudis, the Emiratis, the Jordanians, the Bahrainis, the Moroccans. The only ones who don't get it is the Israeli right-wing fanatics.
You are simply delusional and you are misleading the public. The Arab Peace Plan is open for everyone, and I invite everyone to read it on the internet, where it says the return of the refugees as as one of the integral parts and non-negotiable parts of that deal.
As a just and agreed solution.
And the idea of that is to flood Israel with 6 million Palestinian refugees that have never lived here, never came from here, and they have no place here, and therefore to destroy Israel demographically and democratically. All of those people will be given Israeli citizenship. Israel, as a democratic Jewish country, will cease to exist. That is
how can Israel be democratic in a state from the river to the sea? How can Israel be democratic when they're between the Jordan River and the sea? They are the same
now, I want to stop the two of you because there is a plan. I want to stop.
Let's not listen to the Arabs
but Maurice,
and what they're saying.
I want to stop the two for a minute because there is a plan on the table. You mentioned former Ambassador David Friedman, U.S. Ambassador to Israel. He just put out a book called The One State Solution. He offers
One Jewish State.
One Jewish State, where he offers, thank you, he offers a solution. Right? I'm just going to give you a little bit about his plan because I think it's important to understand. And he was a very big part, you know, of the Trump administration. And certainly, if the election goes in that favor, and I don't know which way it will go, but whatever, if it does go in favor of Donald Trump, he will likely have a prominent position. And in essence, his plan proposes extending Israeli sovereignty over all of the West Bank, granting permanent residency to 2.7 million or so Palestinians that are living there currently. And it also seeks American and Gulf support for what he calls a Marshall Plan to improve the region's healthcare, education, and overall prosperity. Israel would essentially assert sovereignty over Judea and Samaria, provide care for the Palestinians, empower them, though, with local self-rule. In other words, Palestinians that currently don't have citizenship would have citizenship, but they would not vote in the...
Residency.
No, citizenship, he said. But they would not be voting, in the national election, they would be voting in a local election.
So they would...
Well, so David Friedman acknowledged that they are Palestinians, not like our friends here.
Right, so my question is, I mean, Nadia, why don't you start? I mean, as you said, you read the book. Arabs who live in the area, they would get, Ki'ilu citizenship, sort of like Puerto Rico, from what I understand, in the United States.
The example of Puerto Rico.
Yep.
And so, people like to say, and he writes in the book also, people might call it apartheid, but then they don't know what the word apartheid is. So let's put apartheid aside. Apartheid, the policy...
Wait, I want to hear Nadia for a minute.
Policy of segregation on grounds of race. So we know that we are not apartheid. We are a Jewish state. Is the law of return apartheid? It's a law that only gives Jews the right to be Israeli citizens. Is that apartheid? So let's put apartheid aside. We know that that's a libel.
And we don't have so much time, so focus on the plan.
We are a Jewish state, and so we have to stay Jewish on the one hand, and we have a big population, 1.8 million Arabs, who we cannot give citizenship, but we can give them residency. And in our journal that we just put out, the Sovereignty Journal, we have the research by the IDSF, the Habitronistim, who researched that there are 66 Western democracies in the world where they have different statuses of residency and citizenship, etc., and they're not blamed to be apartheid. So there is a way of keeping Israel Jewish, with an overwhelming Jewish majority, and including a non-Jewish minority loyal to the state of Israel that will not receive the right to use our democracy to overturn our Jewish state, and that will not use our democracy to promote their national wishes, which they're never going to get here. Sovereignty is taking responsibility. Yes, Israeli sovereignty from the river to the sea will be good for Jews and non-Jews alike who want to live with us really in peace. And we have Arabs in our sovereignty movement. You won't believe it. They're not going to be interviewed because they like to have their head still on their shoulders, but they're with us.
So wait, I want to...
They want, and they're willing to have residency and not citizenship. And the two-state solution is finished. Now we have to think of something else because we don't want another October 7th.
We have 3 minutes left, and I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to respond to a couple of last questions, okay? So I think that there are two things that are left here on the table. Number one, if we don't apply sovereignty, what is going to happen? And I want you to answer that question. And number two, if we don't implement a Palestinian state and give in to the international community, and I wouldn't, maybe give in is the wrong word, but work with the international community in that way, what is that going to mean? And Nadia, I want you to give me a vision for if either of these happen, can Israel survive? What does it look like? Maurice, start.
The delusion that we've been going down for the last 30 years, the Oslo idea, this idea of a two-state solution, has led us only to bloodshed and death on both sides. If we don't change that paradigm, and sooner rather than later, we will continue being murdered. The Palestinians will continue with their idea of destroying the state of Israel. and they will continue on with their goal to eradicate the Jewish state.
So we'll all be dead.
So we'll all be dead.
Nadav,
Including Nadav, by the way.
if we don't have a
whether it's the settlers
Palestinian state,
or
what's
Tel
going to
Aviv.
happen to Israel?
Israel will become an apartheid state. Israel, the democracy of Israel, which is already under threat by the Jewish supremacists and fascists in our government, will be destroyed. Israel will become a pariah country in the free world. We might maybe have a support of some evangelical Christians or MAGA Republicans, but we will not have the support of the free world.
And Nadia, we have 15 seconds left. Give me a vision. One of these scenarios is probably going to happen. Where do we go from here?
There's no perfect plan. We have to choose between committing suicide to two-state solution or a plan with a headache, but we have such a wonderful people. And if we apply sovereignty, it will be good for the Jews and the non-Jews who want to live with us. We'll bring another 2 million Jews on Aliyah here. There'll be a great economy. There will be building new communities. There will be prosperity, and we will save the Western world from Islam that is trying to take over. So sovereignty is in.
Thank you both, or the three of you, so much. There is so much that we keep going, I think, for another half hour, but unfortunately, we are out of time this evening. Thank you to all of the guests. For more of the latest updates from Israel, make sure to subscribe to our newsletter at ILTV.tv. You can also purchase and download our app to receive alerts directly to your phone. Thank you for watching Insider. May the people and the state of Israel win this war and bring our hostages home.
Amen.